Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV and Rely on Catholics. And what we do is all for free and for our love of Jesus Christ and for our Holy Mother, the Church. We'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. We just got done with our episode on Arcsite Genocide Day 4. And so we're coming back right away with our show on the United Nations by Adam Labor, Complicity with Evil. The United Nations in the Age of Modern Genocide. It is linked on the show page, and you can go get a copy, or if you can get a free membership at the internetarchive.org, you can read this book for free as well. We left off about how the UN passed Resolution 770 and 771 to bring in humanitarian relief supplies and also soldiers. And now we're going to get into how they failed to do this. Yet UN officials and UN Pro-4 officers, fearful of seeming to compromise their impartiality, were still unwilling to implement the mandate granted by Resolution 770 to take all measures necessary to deliver relief supplies. A single Serb soldier with a gun was enough to stop passage of a UN aid convoy. UN Pro-4 refused to use force to get relief supplies through. The United Nations neutrality had become more important than its actual mission, says the U.S. diplomat who served there during the Bosnian War. The United Nations would rather be true to its principles than get anything done, be effective, or play a positive role. The United Nations is about the principle of being neutral. In Bosnia, the principles of peacekeeping were the opposite of what was needed for the United Nations to play a positive role. Now we're going to get into how the Serbs on the ground did not like or respect the blue flag or the blue helmets. Yet when the United States considered a liability was regarded by the Secretariat as the greatest asset, the blue UN flag was only a guarantee of safe passage across the front lines, as Merrick Golding had proclaimed in the 1988 speech in Stockholm, when he lauded a neutrality that allowed peacekeepers to carry weapons while avoiding their use at almost any cost. But what worked then in Cyprus and Kashmir did not work in 92 in Sarajevo. The cost of the United Nations' obsession with avoiding the use of force soon became clear. And now we're going to get into how the vice prime minister was murdered in French UN peacekeepers control. On 8th January 1993, Bosnia's vice prime minister Hagi Turlic and his escort of French UN peacekeepers were detained by Serb fighters at an illegal checkpoint on the road to Sarajevo airport. The French UN troops stopped as ordered after the door of the armored personnel carrier transporting Turlic was opened. A Serb gunman pointed his weapon inside and shot him dead at point-blank range. The French troops did not return fire, did not call for reinforcements less than 600 yards away, or detain the killers. British troops who arrived on the scene were ordered to leave. But the French, Turlic's murder clearly highlighted the United Nations culture of impunity towards the Serbs, says Diego Araya, the Venezuelan ambassador. Araya, a dapper outspokesman, former governor of Caracas, newspaper editor, was the spokesman for the 110-member non-aligned caucus, which did not side automatically with either the United States or Russia. Yeah, I'm reading a little bit more about Arius. Aria was dubbed the conscience of the council for his defense of Bosnia. He recalls it was clear that if you can murder with the protection of the United Nations, the deputy prime minister of the newest member of the United Nations, you can get away with murder, which actually they did. Now we get into some info from Mr. Labor himself on what he went through. The P5 aimed to marginalize Bosnia as a sovereign nation and deny me the right to state its views forcefully and on the record. The legitimacy of Bosnia's government was systematically undermined. Violations of humanitarian law were characterized as acts of war, but Diego and I coordinated fully. He was a close friend and an ally who understood the political and ethical issues at stake. He was Mr. Inside while I was Mr. Outside. Now we're going to get into how the UN declared there was no siege going on. In summer 1993, Brigadier General Vera Hayes, UN Pro 4 Chief of Staff, declared, "There is no humanitarian siege of Sarajevo," pressed by reporters who read out the dictionary definition of the word siege. UN Pro 4 spokesman Barry Fruer claimed, "The Serbs have encircled the city. They are in a position to bring force to bear on the city. You call it a siege. We say they are deployed in tactically advantageous position." The representatives of both the UNHCR and International Committee of the Red Cross immediately disagreed with Fruer. But now we're going to get into how the Bosnians, not the UN peacekeepers, got a little extra money on the side through the black market. This is really telling. But for some peacekeepers, war was highly profitable as they ran a thriving black market, selling UN food and fuel. The United Nations operation in Sarajevo was a sieve of corruption, says the American photographer Mark Milstein, who lived in the city for most of the war. The United Nations sold food to the Holiday Inn Hotel, which sold it to the journalists for $20 a meal, and then the United Nations got a kickback. It was an open secret that every restaurant in the city got its food like that. The different battalions ran different operations. The Egyptians ran a taxi service to and from the airport and an EPC for anyone with money or the United Nations card. The Ukrainians made a lot of money selling food and fuel. Some French troops traded ration packs for sex. Once stated they could pour themselves a glass of their own specially imported red wine, dubbed the Chateau Sarajevo. Huh? So I'm gonna stop right there, folks, because tomorrow, Sunday, after our show on day 5, we'll come back and finish the safe area section of our show on the United Nations and keep highlighting things that everyone needs to know. So please get a copy of Adam Labor's book, which is linked in the show page. And also, if you cannot get it where you are in the world, hopefully you can get a free account at the internetarchive.org and be able to rent and read his book for free. This is Lord of Military's Radio TV signing off. It is full.